What's up, YouTube? My name is Ben, otherwise known as Pragmatic Software Engineering, and today we're going to talk about programming fundamentals. You may have asked yourself the question, how do I learn how to program? It's so confusing. Well, it is kinda, but once you break it down, it's actually not that bad. So the answer of how to learn how to program lies within learning how to use your artist's palette. Believe it or not, there's only like 5 or 6 different things you can do with programming that makes up all software engineering. So the first thing we'll talk about here is variables. And a variable is a noun. It's a number. It's a text. It's a letter. It's the word hello. It's H. It's for. Things like that. And variables are really cool because they allow the computer to remember stuff. You may have heard the word memory when it comes to computers. Variables use up memory. Variables in programming are analogous to mathematical variables. So y equals mx plus b, v equals ir. mx, b, I, and r are all variables. Now you can set variables to different things. So an example of y sub 0, you're setting x to 0, and that gives you the result 1. If you create a variable called hello with all caps and you call a lowercase function on it, you get lowercase hello. And you can set a variable to the output of those functions you just saw. Additionally, to make things more flexible, there's a concept of collections of variables, sometimes called arrays or lists or maps. We'll get into those more soon. But those are more than one variable. So an example would be just all integers between 0 and 10. The next thing we'll talk about are functions. And functions are analogous to verbs in the English language. So they're a collection of operations. And so functions are one or more actions. So if you recall the slope formula, y equals mx plus b, you take x and you multiply it by m. And then with whatever you do with that, you add b to it. So in the slope formula y equals mx plus b, you have one argument, and that is x. Well, in programming, you can make 0 to thousands of arguments. If you do thousands, though, you may destroy your memory. And these arguments, you could have a function with no arguments, like getting your operating system name. That's just going to return Windows, Linux, Mac. And that result is optional. So an example of a zero argument function that has no result, shutdown, right? Turns off your computer. Now we're going to talk about conditionals. And conditionals are found within every piece of code. They allow us to turn on different pieces of code and turn off different pieces of code. And they're absolutely critical to understand. So conditions allow us to have different sort of execution paths for things. So you can set expectations for a code to run. An example would be if you wrote a function to capitalize letters, you want to capitalize letters if they are lowercase. There's no need to recapitalize the letters. Or, here's another example. You go to Facebook.com and your page hasn't quite loaded yet, but you see that spinning icon. Well, you're spinning that icon until that page is done loading. So if the page is not done loading, spin the icon. They can be compounded. So if I am ready and interested, I will learn how to program. If I need caffeine and I do not like tea, make coffee. We can talk more about conditionals in another YouTube video, but for now I just want to make sure we go over the basics. Loops. Loops are a very cool tool we use to not repeat ourselves in code, and they make a lot of our functionality flexible. So loops allow actions upon many objects. A while loop is a loop that runs until a condition fails. So change the computer every n minutes, or spin an icon until the page is done loading. A for loop is a loop we use to run a set of commands on a sequence or an array or a collection of things. So an example would be lowercase every letter in this piece of text, or print out every number in a sequence of between 0 and 10. In the next episode, we'll be setting up a Java environment with IntelliJ on Windows, and I will also do one on Linux for you brave souls. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and send me any messages if you're confused, and feel free to leave a comment. Thanks.